Station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
Houston Station, we are ready for the event.
KEX Radio, this is Mission Control Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
KEX in Portland, voice check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. KEX Radio Portland 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
We hear you loud and clear on station. It's good to be talking to Portland today.
Well, Don, good greetings from Portland, Oregon, your home state. Paul Lindman and Scott Lynn with you. How are you enjoying life on the space station this time around?
Paul, I'll tell you, the second time around is just as good as the first time.
You told your family upon arrival Christmas Eve that it was like being back home, but really, how much like home?
It's like going to your summer home or your cottage in the mountains. It's obviously not my home because my home is with my family in Houston, but it is like going back to visit an old friend, and it's wonderful to be here.
Don, this is Scott Lynn, the former Oregon State Beaver announcer, wanting to say hello to a former Beaver right up there in space. I just wonder, what are the really cool experiments that you're involved in right now?
Well, we just finished up an experiment right before this PAO event, and it's a human experiment. We experiment on ourselves. We're kind of like guinea pigs, and we're looking at how human physiology responds to living for long periods of time in a low-gravity environment. And this experiment is called integrated cardiovascular, and it's looking at what happens to your cardiovascular system as it slowly changes or degrades, depending on what kind of word you want to use to describe it, in a weightless environment. And what we were doing were ultrasound measurements on my heart, looking at chamber size and chamber volume and just looking at the dynamics of what the heart physiology is like. And we're doing this in conjunction with EKG measurements and power measurements on your heart, and then also in conjunction with the cardiovascular exercise that we do. So it's a integrated cardiovascular physiological experiment, and I just spent about 2 hours helping collect some of the data.
Don Pettit, I've read you say that when you're on Earth, you dream about being up there, you dream about flying, and when you're up there, you dream about walking. What do you suppose that's all about?
I think it just shows that wherever human beings are, you're always there's always a little bit of discontent, and you want to be where you aren't. And it's the adage of the grass is greener on the other side.
I know there are students here in Oregon and all across America, if not the world, who are following you right now and your experiments. With the end of the Space Shuttle program, what do you have to say to those future space explorers who might be wondering about what might be coming now?
Well, the Space Shuttle program ended, but our space program did not. And we're moving on to the next generation of rocket, and it's going to be really exciting because it's going to have the capability to take us to places beyond low Earth orbit, and it's going to be really exciting, and it's going to be really exciting to visit places beyond low Earth orbit as well as low Earth orbit, and when we get our new rocket built, there's going to be a whole world of opportunity, so to speak, for all these students who want to come and take my job.
You're up there for 5 months right now. Does that seem daunting at all when you look at that time frame? And would you accept a 2-year mission to Mars?
Actually, the mission duration is not daunting at all. I actually wish it could be a little bit longer. 5 months seems kind of short. And think about it, I've already been up here almost a month already. So 1/5 of my mission is over, and it feels like I'm just barely getting started. So the length of this mission is not too long. It's actually a little bit on the short side. I would not mind going to Mars. However, the conditions have to be correct. It's these one-way trips to Mars does not settle well with me. It has to be a trip where you could go and either immigrate to the planet, meaning you have enough technology there to live the rest of your life in a human lifestyle, or a trip that's an exploratory trip where you plan to come back. And either one of those Mars missions, I'd sign up in a nanosecond.
And Don, how close are we to having that happen? Can we see that in our lifetimes?
Gosh, my crystal ball doesn't see that far into the future. I'd like to think that it'll happen within our lifetime. I think if we wanted to, we could, as a society, we could make it happen in our lifetime. It just depends. Do we have the political will to back a program that will take 15 or 20 years to complete and see it through? If it's something that we as a country want to do, we could roll up our sleeves and do it.
We're speaking with NASA astronaut Don Pettit from Oregon. He's at the International Space Station, Expedition 30. Don, you get up. You're looking at a moonrise like we on Earth have not seen. But I've always wondered, can you get a decent cup of coffee there?
It depends on your definition for a decent cup of coffee. Our coffee is in bags, and so you really don't have a cup of coffee, you have a bag of coffee, and it's all instant coffee. And you can get a bag of just black coffee, you can get a bag of coffee with some kind of instant creamer, you can get a bag of coffee with instant creamer and sugar. So you got 3 choices. And you grab a bag in the morning and you go to the water machine and you pump it full of hot water and you stick a straw in it, and there you go with your bag of coffee.
How do you spend your downtime, and how much do you get?
I like to call it off-duty time, because living and working on station, it's like being on a ship. And you're always on call, and there's always something to do. But every so often, you have some off-duty time. And we get maybe an hour, hour and a half of off-duty time a day. By the time we get done doing all the program work, and then there's all kinds of little chores we have to do, like inventory management for our food and our clothing, and keeping all our supplies straightened out, and getting stowage sorted out, and hunting things down for the next day. And we probably spend a couple hours doing that every day. And by the time all of that's done, we have maybe an hour, hour and a half a day of off-duty time.
Don, you and I are about the same age. Many of our generation grew up thinking it would be so great to be an astronaut. When did you know that this was what you wanted to do?
Well, I had an inkling of being an astronaut when I was a little kid. Growing up in Silverton, we were coming out of YB's. It was the clothing store, the clothing store in town. I don't think there was another clothing store. And with a pair of Red Ball Jet shoes. And I don't even know where they're made today, but they were really neat to have a pair of Red Ball Jets. And inside the box of the Red Ball Jets was a real floppy 45 RPM record that had John Glenn describing what it was like for being in orbit. And when I listened to that, I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. Maybe that's something that I could do when I grow up.
Astronaut Don Pettit speaking to us from the space station in orbit. Don, such a thrill to talk to you today. Godspeed, and we're proud of you here in the state of Oregon.
I'll tell you, I'm proud of the state of Oregon for giving me the opportunity through education to end up doing what I'm doing today.
Thank you very much. KEX Radio in Portland, we are clear.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the KEX Radio portion of the event. Please stand by for a voice check from KOIN-TV.
Station, this is KOIN-TV. How do you hear me?
KOIN-TV, station hears you loud and clear.
Good morning, Don. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us. We appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing up there in orbit this morning.
I was working on a number of experiments this morning. Most of them are life science experiments on ourselves. We're human guinea pigs. We're looking at how human physiology responds to long-duration space flight. And there's a number of interesting changes that occur in your body, and these can be clues to how our physiology works in the first place. Human beings are not used to living in a weightless environment, and when you can change the environment, oftentimes your physiology will give you clues as to how things operate. So that's one of the many scientific investigations that we're doing up here, and that's what I happen to be working on today.
You've been up there for about a month already, 4 months left to go. Have you already been able to see changes in your body, or do you anticipate significant changes over the course of your mission?
There are a number of simple changes, I'll call them, that you could just see by looking in a mirror. One is your face gets all puffy. You get kind of chipmunk cheeks. And that happens within hours after arriving into space, and it takes about 3 weeks, maybe 4 for most of that to go down, and you're still a little on the chipmunk side. And then you tend to lose a lot of water, and so your the size of your legs kind of shrink down to what look like little pickle sticks. But the amazing thing that happens is after about 2.5, maybe 3 months, all the skin on the bottom of your feet peels off, and you lose all your calluses, and the bottoms of your feet are just as soft and tender as a baby's bottom.
So it's the outer space exfoliation treatment.
It's an outer space exfoliation treatment, and I'll tell you what happens. You develop calluses on the top of your feet because you spend a lot of time hooking your feet into handrails to hold yourself in position. Like right now, my feet are underneath a handrail, and what's really holding me there is the top of my feet. And the tops of your feet aren't used to that kind of contact, and they get sore. And after a few months of doing this, you get all these calluses on the top of your feet, while you lose all the calluses on the bottom of your feet.
Don, tell us a little bit about your trip into space. So obviously, we're now using the Russian space program to help get crews to the International Space Station. What's it like going through their program to access the ISS versus the old way that we have traditionally known?
Well, there are more similarities in the space programs than there are differences. And I think it's because the technology is pretty much on par. You have to get in a rocket, and you have to blast off, and it's a highly dynamic environment, and you have a short period of time to make decisions, and so you have to do a lot of training for possible maladies so that you know how to respond. And the Russian training program is quite similar to our training program. We do simulator runs, we do classroom training, we have exams, and when all of that's said and done, then you go into quarantine. We go into quarantine at the Cape. In Russia, we go into quarantine in Baikonur, and then the human emotion content is also similar. When you're walking out to your rocket, there's a lot of dynamics going on in your heart that says that you're a human being and you're getting ready to blast off of this planet.
as a human being and one who it gets to experience the excitement of space, which do you prefer, being in space or being down here on the ground?
Oh, gosh, I'd hate to have to choose. I'll be greedy and say I want to do both. I will say that ultimately you have to be where your family is, and my family is on Earth. If we had the technology, which hopefully sometime in the future we will, I'd load my family on the next rocket and immigrate into space and possibly never even come back to Earth. But we don't have that technology today, so I'm earthbound after this mission.
Well, your family, some of it may be in Houston, Texas, but you grew up here in Oregon, and we consider you an Oregonian. Tell us a little bit about what it was like growing up in Silverton and how it got you to where you are today.
Well, Silverton, I've got a special place in my heart for Silverton. It's a small town. It's a log and farming community. People work really hard, and there's all kinds of opportunity for kids growing up to learn real-world skills. You can get yourself an old jalopy. You can have a motor scooter. You can have a go-kart. You can work on your lawnmower engines, and all of these skills help you in the real world. And then during the summers, you can work, and you can work doing meaningful jobs on the farms, in the logging industry, and these meaningful jobs pay quite well, so you can make some money, and you can use that to help pay your way through college or buy more jalopy parts, and that environment I found gave me everything I needed to go off and do whatever I needed to do in the world.
Well, for children in Silverton or in Corvallis or really anywhere, how can we get them excited about the space program when so much in the news lately has been about what's going away? How do we get them excited about what's still to come?
Well, one thing to focus on is focus on what is to come. And for example, the shuttle program has ended, but we are in the process of making a new generation of rockets, and these rockets are designed from the ground up, so to speak, to take human beings not only into low Earth orbit, but also away from the planet. And that gives us an amazing opportunity now to explore other aspects of our solar system. So I see the future of space to be bright. It's something that has a special attraction for students, and it's something that I encourage students to take the hard classes in school, take the math, take the science, the physics, the engineering, and when you're ready, come do my job.
Your job, you still obviously have a couple months left to do it. Do you think this is your last time in space? Will you get to go back or maybe even further beyond?
Well, I'm ready to go back into space at the drop of a hat, and we'll just have to see what the opportunities are. We've got a heap of younger folks coming in to the astronaut office, and all of them want to fly into space, and so we have to be willing to spread the funness around. So we'll see whether another opportunity comes around. If it does, I'll be willing. If it doesn't, I've had a wonderful career.
All right, we're just getting wrapped up here, Don. What do you want to say to the folks here in Oregon who remember you growing up with them or are so proud of what you've accomplished from the community and where you came? What message would you like to share with them today?
Well, one message is I think education is the key to doing everything cool in life. And I appreciate the fact that Oregon has valued education, and I know there's a lot of taxpayers that grumble when it comes time to pay your taxes, particularly the school taxes, because they're not cheap, but those school taxes are what gives the next generation a chance to go off and do things. So that's something that I really appreciate. The Oregonians that gave me the opportunity to get the education that allowed me to be where I am now.
Don Pettit, graduate of Silverton High and Oregon State University, joining us from the International Space Station. Don, thank you so much, and we look forward to your future travels.
It's been a pleasure talking to you. And I do want to add that we flew over Crater Lake a couple days ago, and looking down, that is just an amazing sight to see from orbit.
We can only imagine how great it is in person here on land, only to see it from space. Don, thank you so much.
Bye now.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the event. Thank you.
Thank you, KEX Radio and KOIN-TV. Station, we are now resuming operational audio communications.